Alright, welcome back everybody to my channel. Today's video we're going to talk about Tim Draper, the VC who saw Bitcoin. The year is 2014 and the FBI has just seized over 170,000 Bitcoin from the infamous online black market known as the Silk Road. Everybody seems to be asking the same question. What happens next? Some said it should be burned, basically destroyed. Others said it should be sold, giving the profits to victims of the Silk Road. But an idea was born within the halls of the US government. They were going to auction it. Most people saw this Bitcoin as dirty money, risky, dangerous, and with no real future. But one man saw something else. In fact, one man saw the future of money itself. That man was Tim Draper, one of the biggest venture capitalists in the world. And this moment changed the history of both Bitcoin and crypto forever. You see, Tim Draper isn't your typical Wall Street investor. He's a guy who bets big on what he believes will become the future. In fact, he's known for finding companies like Hotmail, Skype, Baidu, Tesla, and Coinbase, just to name a few. So when most people looked at Bitcoin and said, "No way," Tim Draper saw promise. When the FBI auction started, the price per coin was around $500. Now imagine if you had the money. Would you have taken the chance? Let me know in the comments. But eventually, the US government decided they wanted to sell much of their Bitcoin in smaller auctions instead of one large one, so it took place over several months. Now, if you've been watching this channel for any amount of time, you already know that there have been some epic moments in crypto history where prices spiked through the roof and some savvy investors made fortunes. Well, this is one of those moments. Tim Draper jumped at the opportunity. He bought over 1,000 Bitcoins in the first auction, then another 9,000 in the second, and then in the third and final auction, he bought the rest, 17,000 Bitcoin. All told, he spent about $18 million for all of them. This gave him 27,625 Bitcoin. But here's where things get interesting because at the time, Bitcoin was still seen as a dangerous currency used mainly for illegal activity. There were a lot of questions regarding its legitimacy. Basically, nobody really knew what was going to happen to the value of these coins, especially after being seized from such a notorious source. In fact, in 2014, only 3% of Americans felt that Bitcoin had a legitimate use. And at the time, one Bitcoin was worth less than $600. So why did Draper take this risk? Well, he didn't buy it to flip. He bought it because he believed in the technology and he understood its potential. At the time, he said, this is one of the rare opportunities to invest in something like the internet in the early 1990s. Bitcoin isn't going away. It's not some fad that will disappear after a few months or years. It's here to stay, and it's got incredible upside. There's a quote that's often attributed to him that goes, "I never trust a market that doesn't have a catalyst for growth." But Bitcoin has multiple catalysts that are going to push it forward, and he's right. If you think about it, how many times has Bitcoin been written off only to come back bigger and better than ever? In fact, while studying the origins of revolutionary technology, Draper found 3 key factors that indicated Bitcoin would change the world. Factor No. 1. New technologies almost always start out small, unnoticeable, and then grow exponentially. Take the internet, for example. In 1993, only 2% of Americans were using it. But today, well, 90% of the planet uses it every single day. So when people doubted Bitcoin back in 2014, Draper wasn't worried. In fact, he saw it as an incredible opportunity. Factor number 2 is that Bitcoin solves a major problem. Governments don't like it because they can't control it. Banks don't like it because it threatens their jobs. And most people just don't understand it. But that doesn't change the fact that Bitcoin provides a valuable service to society. We'll save that for another video. But for now, just know that there is a reason over 100 million people use it. And factor No. 3. There's almost always a big event that accelerates adoption. For the internet, it was the launch of Google. For smartphones, it was the launch of the iPhone. And for Bitcoin, well, Draper believed it would be institutional adoption. In other words, it would be when major companies, banks, and governments embraced it and started using it. It didn't take long for Draper's investments to pay off. Remember when I said Bitcoin has seen some epic spikes in price? Well, in late 2017, Bitcoin reached a record high of almost $20,000 per coin. By some estimates, Draper's Bitcoin holdings made him worth $1 billion. Yes, a full-fledged crypto billionaire. Fast forward to 2021, and Tim Draper is still one of the richest men in crypto. He has invested in dozens of companies and funds, and he continues to speak out about the incredible promise of this space. If you want proof of how bullish he remains, let me share this with you. Despite the fact that Bitcoin has crashed 85% since its all-time high of $69,000, Draper says it's not unusual for Bitcoin to undergo a correction of this size. And he predicts that it will recover and break its previous record, saying, Bitcoin will certainly go up to $250,000 per coin, maybe even more. His predictions may seem outlandish to some, but this is the same guy who predicted Bitcoin would reach $10,000 before hitting $1 million. So he's clearly got a good read on things. I know that some of you may have FOMO after hearing about Draper's massive returns. But remember, he was criticized for buying dirty money, he was ridiculed for betting on a fad, and he was questioned for thinking Bitcoin would last. Those are 3 reasons why most people missed out on making life-changing money with Bitcoin. First, they waited until it was too late. By the time they realized Bitcoin was here to stay, it was much more expensive and much harder to afford. Second, they judged the technology based on its past use rather than its future potential. And third, they didn't hold long enough. Most people buy crypto expecting to double or triple their money in a few weeks or months. But Bitcoin's all-time high is still almost 5 times its previous all-time high. That shows you that sometimes you need to zoom out and see the bigger picture. So what can we learn from Tim Draper? Well, here are 3 things that stood out to me. 1. Long-term vision beats short-term panic. Don't chase the latest trends or make decisions based on temporary price movements. Stay focused on your long-term goals. 2. Conviction matters. When everyone around you is doubting and criticizing your ideas, that's when you need to stand firm. Your beliefs aren't defined by what others think. And 3. History rhymes. New technologies often start small and face skepticism, but they have the potential to change the world. Think of the printing press, the radio, TV, the internet, and so on. The same is true with Bitcoin and crypto. So what do you think about Tim Draper's story? Do you agree with his prediction that Bitcoin could reach $250,000 or even more? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to learn more about investing in cryptocurrency, check out the links down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.